Okay, good evening. I'd like to call to order the September 13th, 2022 Common Council meeting. The time is 7 p.m. I'd like to ask our city clerk, Joanne Marcon, to call the roll.
Mayor Kim Smith,
Here?
Tom Smith,
Here.
Dan Stevens,
Here.
Stephen Knott,
Present.
Leanne Stokes,
Here.
Larry Jurassic,
Present.
Diane Wolf.
Here. We are all in attendance. Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Whoa.
Joanne, I don't have that.
Oh, got it. Be nice.
Better stick to the.
You did that on the radio today.
I was just gonna say
Yeah, just kind of continue the radio show. Okay, item 3, rules of the City of Onalaska Common Council and its subcommittees. This is a harassment-free forum. The city council and subcommittee meetings shall be conducted in a courteous manner. Citizens, council, and committee members shall be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free of slander, obscene remarks, or threats of violence. Sufficient warnings may be given by the sergeant at arms or the chair at any time during the remarks, and in the event that any individual shall violate the rules of decorum as set forth, such person may then be cut off from comment or debate. Item 3 is public input. If anyone would like to address the Common Council this evening, now is the time to do so. Please come up to the microphone, begin by stating your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Would anyone like to address the Common Council this evening? Anyone wishing to address the Common Council, now is the time to do so. I'm not seeing or hearing anyone, so this part of the meeting, the public input, is now closed, and I will move on to item 5, a report from the mayor. The first item, item A, is concerning the American Rescue Plan Act funding for local law enforcement. And I will turn it over to Chief Ashbeck for an update on some ARPA funding for local law enforcement that the city is receiving.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, everyone. So recently I met with Mayor Smith and we were talking about this grant that we and all law enforcement agencies in Wisconsin were granted earlier this year. And so Mayor thought, which I agreed, it was best to come to the council and just explain, what the grant was and what I've been doing with the grant. And so that's why I'm here tonight to explain that. So just a little history, if you don't recall, earlier this year in the spring, I think it was, Governor Evers announced a statewide law enforcement grant to Safer Communities grant to all law enforcement agencies with a minimum of $7,000. I think it's based on population and size of agency. So the smallest departments received $7,000 and then it scaled up from there. Our department received $42,912 out of that grant. And so we were awaiting the rules. Department administration came out with those there's, I think, 10 different categories that are allowed under that, very specific categories that are the funding is allowed for. And essentially, it's one of these grants where you have to expend it and then report it, and then they reimburse you for those funds. So I've been working through and purchasing a few different items here, and some of them are like medical bags for all our squad cars with some first responder equipment, because we've never had very good medical supplies or first responder supplies in our squad cars. Ironically, the very first night that I put one of these in our squad cars, we had a stabbing and the officer was cognizant enough to get a chest seal out of here and apply it to the patient. So it was quite amazing. Unfortunately, the patient didn't make it, but that's neither here nor there. It was still a great use of the tools. Some other things that we were able to purchase was update our officer reserve program, portable radios. We purchased 10 new portable radios out of that program, which saved us about $12,000 from the capital improvement budget item. So we were very pleased to be able to purchase radios out of that. Some other equipment, some specific lighting that the officers wear to light up if they're on a scene, an accident scene, whatnot. Actually, it's mounted onto their shoulder, on their uniform carrier up here, and it can light up red and blues. It can light up white, different stuff like that. It's called a guardian angel, actually, because it sits on your shoulder. So anyway, we've worked through some of those expenses. I've reported those. They have reporting periods every quarter. September is a current reporting period, so I have almost all those items in there reported. So those should get reimbursed back to us probably in October, maybe early November for those funds. I can go into more detail if you'd like, if you have any questions. That's in a nutshell. We have until next June to expend the funds, so it's a short time span. Given this market with the supply chain and how hard it is to get things, I wanted to get going on this because some of the stuff that you order may take months to get. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Chief.
Right.
Alder Jurassic?
Yeah, do the bays carry Narcan?
No, the officers carry the Narcan on them directly because it's affected by heat and cold.
So the epi,
I'm sorry, what?
epi,
No EpiPens. We have not, we do not carry those. No.
Alder Not?
Were you able to resupply the bag that had to be used?
Yes. Yeah, we had originally, actually, this idea came from a donation. We had received a few of these bags from a couple, a private couple that had did a kind of a fundraiser out at Maple Grove venue. And so we really liked the idea of the supplies in there. So with that, then we could, with the grant, we could purchase more of these because these bags along with the supplies are actually pretty expensive. They're almost like $400 a bag with the supplies. So it's not something we can normally afford to do.
Alder Smith?
You anticipate being able to get everything that you'll need before that time runs out with your money?
I hope so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, there's always more wishes than resources.
Sure.
But this has been a very nice tool to us to be able to get. Another thing, we equipped all the cars, all the patrol cars with lockout tools to be able to unlock the doors. We've had lately a couple cars with children locked in there that we've had to break out windows in and whatnot. So this is a tool for us to be able to, normally we just have one that's stationed in the garage and officers would have to respond back here to get that tool. So that's been a good opportunity for us.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Okay, item B, Friends of the Onalaska Library Proclamation. I just wanted to let the council and community know that I will be issuing a proclamation and declaring Saturday, September 17th, Friends of the Onalaska Library Day. The Friends of the Onalaska Library have been in existence for 30 years, and they've done a lot of things for our community library over the years, including gifting the new digital sign, which maybe many of you have seen at the library. So you are invited out on Saturday to enjoy the sign and have an ice cream social. And I just want to, it's just a for your information item. Item C, recognition of the full-time firefighter EMT Greg Payne on completing his 1-year probation. If Chief Goody and Greg Payne would like to come up.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good evening. Tonight we're recognizing full-time firefighter EMT Greg Payne for successfully completing his 1-year probation. Greg's experience includes he's with La Crosse Fire Department's Explorer program as an advisor for 7 years. He had 18 years on the Campbell Fire Department, so he has quite a bit of experience starting as a junior firefighter and working his way to firefighter service director. And he, when he came down Alaska, he was an EMS captain. He has an associate's degree in fire science. He's certified fire officer 1, fire inspector 1, and fire investigator. His hobbies include camping and biking. And joining Greg tonight is his wife, Sarah, kids, Madeline, Ava, and Arlo, his parents, Scott and Dorothy, father and mother-in-law, Tom and Meredith, and Sarah and Ava will be doing the pinning tonight.
Come on up. Those people taking photos, you can position yourself however you want.
Sweet.
And thank you to Greg and your family for your service.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay, the fun part of the agenda is over. We will move on to recommendations for approval and or possible action from the following committees, commissions, boards, and officials. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business in the non-consent agenda. Are there any items councilors would like removed from the consent agenda? Alder Knott?
Yes, I'd like to move item 6O, which is ordinance 1742-2022 to the non-consent agenda.
Okay,
Your Honor, I would like to pull item X off the Board of Public Works.
okay. Item 6X, with the utility charges. Alder Diane Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to pull item 6C under finance and also 6G under personnel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So far, I have items 6G, C, G, O, and X. Are there any other items councilors would like removed from the consent agenda? Okay, not seeing or hearing any, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda without those items.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Jurassic to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the non-consent agenda. Item 7, recap of items pulled from the consent agenda. The first one being item 6C, which was pulled by Alder Diane Wolf. I'll turn it over to Dan Stevens, the finance chair, to bring forward this item, 6C.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item 6C is the approval of the IT managed service request for proposals, or RFP. The Finance Committee had recommended MCS as the RFP winner, and I will make that motion.
A second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Alder Dan Stevens. It's been seconded by Alder Tom Smith to approve the IT managed service request for proposals. This was awarding it to MCS. Is there any discussion? Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. I asked to pull this off this evening just for a little bit more information to be shared with all. I did attend F&P last week. After that meeting, I had some questions and I have since followed up with Jared Holter. He's answered my questions. I do think it would be beneficial for all to hear maybe some additional information, kind of how we got to that point. And if Jared would please, two things, talk about a little bit about the increased services that you referred to that evening that make up the RFP. I'll let you do that first, and then I'll have a follow-up question after that. Thank you.
Okay. Public Works Director Jared Holter. I was like, okay, it's not engineering. go through a whole list in my
Yeah.
head.
Thank you, Your Honor. This was a long process that started actually back in February of 2022 with the IT staff, myself, and working through this. Once we received the RFPs, and the question tonight is the service increase would be the first question. One of the things that we really strive to do as part of the request for proposal process was to outline and have definitive actions and services, where the previous years with MCS, we were working under a proposal that they provided the city. Now we're working under a proposal that city staff has crafted, and the provider must provide services to that. So some of the things, for instance, inventorying of equipment, that was something that wasn't outlined in the original services that we have added. We feel it's a major component of our IT staff time. Putting all tickets for all calls into the ticketing system, which we have for the IT system. And then we did also increase some of the support services. So we do have a few things that we are supporting a little bit higher. And out of the price difference, those things, and then there's some softer things in the contract that, once again, they'll be having to respond to our contract, not their contract. We feel that's about $10,000 of the increase in the cost of the services. So
And the other 10%, or the other $10,000 you said was the,
it's bidding out of the contract, inflation. It's a 1-year contract that's renewable for specified prices in the contract for years 2 and 3. So part of that's just the increase in costs of what we're seeing in the economy.
thank you for that. Just for my own little corner of the world at City Hall, I know from my personal experience with MCS, I totally support them. I've only had to call them maybe on average of once a year, and they've always been very responsive, even after hours. At least that's been my personal experience. I think it's been a great move for the city to do this. I think we're on our 3rd year with them. I totally support them. It's just that I would just wanted to kind of hear the rest of the story with them. And the other thing is, you had mentioned the people who had reviewed the RFP, and the only concern that I had with that wasn't necessarily with who was at the table reviewing it, but the possible lack of either the city administrator or finance. I certainly understand you having 2 IT and yourself and the police chief, and I appreciate everyone spending that time. But do you want to just touch on that very briefly? How we got to that?
Yeah, so during the time that we received the RFPs, we did have IT staff, both Caitlin Hager and Nils Husker both review it, and myself. We also had our department head, Chief Ashback, who's in the room tonight, review it. And a lot of the services that are provided and called out in the RFP are police related. You know, CJIS compliance is a large portion of the contract, making sure that we're police department compliant on things. So, and with the police chief's background in doing IT and helping with the IT over the years in his role, not only here, but in West Salem, we thought he was a valuable candidate. Going through the process, we were going to have the city attorney review the proposals. Just with all the duties going on, all the things going on, and looking at the scoring, we did not have time to get her included. The finance director was trying to prepare budgets, getting them ready for a variety of committee meetings and things. She was very busy at that time. So we felt we had a good committee, a fair committee, and got good insights from our committee on what it was. And you can see the scoring in the memo that I provided as part of the finance personnel packet. It was pretty wide. It was a wide berth between vendors.
And thank you for that. I guess the only reason why I bring it up is that with my conversation with you this afternoon is that I guess I understand that there is no set policy who will review RFPs. And I thought one of the main reasons why we have a city administrator is to have that big picture. So you have one set of eyes overseeing everything. I guess I assumed that either the city administrator and or finance would have at least looked at that. So
Sabrina Seeger.
All right, thank you. I will have a discussion with Amanda when she's back. We do want to take a look at the finance policies in general. And to be honest, I probably should have reviewed this RFP as well. Just with the timing, it just didn't happen. So in the future, we'll make sure that either Amanda or myself is reviewing these larger.
And I talked with you also about this. I certainly understand the time crunch and it just the stars did not align, because with all the budgets coming out, I'm only one of 6, but I'll represent myself in that I would think that typically councils would be more supportive of if you need that extra week to possibly miss F&P, but get it on the council agenda. And if anyone else here wants to weigh in on that, if you differ, that I certainly understand. But I guess at the end of the day, especially when you look at the size of that contract and how IT touches everyone. I mean, I think it's obvious that it's going to be MCS, but what if it wasn't? And so I just want to make sure that we've done our due diligence. And I think we need to show that transparency. And like I said, for one, I would much rather that staff takes that extra time and takes that extra week if you have to, and put it in the council packet. But I don't know how the other alders may feel about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Wolf. Any other discussion? Alder Stevens?
I guess just to follow up on Alder Wolf's point, as a chair in FNP, I guess if I don't know that FNP has to be the body that makes a decision. I would rather it be done right and we take our time. That said, I don't think if something is out for a request for a proposal and it's pending, rather than hurry it along to bypass FNP, you might just mention that we have an item that we will have an answer for you by council time. So we know to look for it.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve the IT request for proposal, which has been proposed to award to MCS. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up, from the personnel agenda, item G, I'll turn it back to Alder Stevens.
Thank you again, Your Honor. Under item 6G, the Personnel Committee had met and decided to approve to continue with a full-time city administrator, part-time mayor model. And I will make the motion that I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens. It's been seconded by Alder Wolf to approve moving forward with the full-time city administrator, part-time mayor model. Is there any discussion? Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. I only asked to pull this so we could all 6 have a vote just for transparency and just to kind of make a point that we've all 6 have made and weighed in on the actual vote instead of just the consent. So I just thought it was a really important vote this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Stokes?
Yes, the reason that I think it's a good idea to pull this out and talk about it a little bit more is just so that it's in the minutes for transparency for the public, because I know there's been questions as to, what the city is going to be doing. So I think it's a good idea just to have it in the minutes as to what our discussion was. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Jurassic?
Yeah, I'd like to commend the mayor on her comments today on the radio, answering this exact question. She came across as positive and presented the city as forward-looking.
Thank you for that comment. Anything else? Alder Stevens?
So I think there could be merit in exploring some other options. There has been some questions brought up, as Alder Stokes mentioned, that potentially we are duplicating some of the functionality between a city administrator, a city attorney, and then a mayor. With that said, we could reduce some salary with a city manager position. However, in talking with people, it is almost unanimous that what I'm getting the feedback from the public is they want to stick with the city administrator and the part-time mayor position. So, you know, if that's what the voters want, then there's really no discussion about it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve, to continue with the current model we have, which is the full-time city administrator, part-time mayor model. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up is item 6O, and I will turn it over to our judiciary chair, Alder Stokes, to present this item.
Yes, this item came before the Judiciary Committee, and it is to amend 11-02-22 of Title 11 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to public urination and indecent exposure. I know that I had meetings with Katie and with Amanda regarding this. And I'd like to make a motion to approve this ordinance.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Alder Leanne Stokes. It's been seconded by Alder Diane Wolf to approve ordinance 1742-2022. Any discussion? Alder Knott.
Yeah, so before I do any discussion, I do want to put out a warning to anyone who is online with telephone or Zoom that this discussion may be age inappropriate for some younger ears. Yes.
I was just going to add that Planning Manager Katie Aspenson is online if you need anything from her as well.
Oh, good. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to give it about 10 seconds for anybody who might be on a speaker at home listening in to take whatever appropriate action you might deem necessary. Okay, so my concern is with 11.02.22 subsection B, a couple of happy glads and then a little bit more substance too. So where it talks about indecent exposure, any person who within the city of Onalaska municipal limits knowingly or intentionally in a public place does any, it states any of the following commits public indecency. I just say any of the following, but that's a happy glad again. I'm not necessarily bought in on it. Subparagraph 1 to B specifically mentions sexual intercourse defined as physical sexual contact between individuals that involves the genitalia of at least one person, including but not limited to heterosexual intercourse. I'm not sure that we would have to include heterosexual. I just think we say including but not limited to intercourse, sodomy, fellatio, or cunnilingus, and leave it at that. I don't know that we have to identify one specific type of sexuality in there. It's just intercourse is intercourse, sodomy is sodomy, fellatio is fellatio, cunnilingus, cunnilingus. And even with that, I'm not so sure we need to have subsection 1 to be at all, because I think it's kind of caught in 2, where it says anyone who commits, the following is indecent basically, and that's engages in sexual conduct. That should say during the commission, not conduct the commission, during the commission of any of the following. And then it says sexual intercourse, sodomy, bestiality, necrophilia, human excretion, masturbation, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it was something I missed in the discussion, but I think 2 covers 1. I think 1 is kind of redundant. 2 is more overarching and captures everything. So I guess my recommendation ultimately is I'd make a motion to strike 11.02.22 sub B sub 1 to amend sub 2 to where it says engages in sexual conduct during the commission. And then also under subsection 3, which would become the new 2 if this goes forward, should, it's just a happy glad again, exposes genitals in a public area instead of exposes genitals or public area. So my motion is to strike 1, 2 becomes 1, 3 becomes 2, and it should be, and then 2 adds the word during after conduct. 3 becomes 2, and it should be amended to state exposed genitals in a public area. And then 4 becomes 3. That's my motion.
And that's an amendment. Do we have a second to Stephen Knott's amendment?
Chief.
We need to see if we have a second.
I will second.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have the amendment by Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Alder Dan Stevens. And then under discussion, Chief would like to say something.
No, no, I just, number 3, I think is in a pubic area, not public area. It's meant to be.
Oh, I'm
exposing
sorry. I
the
misread that.
pubic
Exposed
area.
genitals or pubic area. Okay, yep, I misread that. Sorry.
Thank you for that clarification.
So I'll strike that portion from my amendment. So number 3 becomes 2 and it would stay as is.
Okay,
I will.
Understood.
I will rescind and then reportion my amend or second.
we'll take the correction to the amendment accepted. Alder Jurassic.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to see added to A is boulevard. Does not state anything in the boulevard.
What's that?
I don't understand. What did you say?
Boulevard, it
Okay.
doesn't say anything as far as reading here of urinating on the boulevard. And that's be the area that,
It is city property.
Well,
Alder Stevens?
to respond to Alder Jurassic, I think like it's a type of thing within the city. So a sidewalk is, you envision a place where you walk on the sidewalk and it's about a couple feet across. An alley is specific kind of in between properties. And then a street would include all the things like highways, roads, courts, cul-de-sacs. So I think that part is inherent. And then to the second point, I guess, is maybe to build on and possibly do a friendly amendment. I also noticed that to me, intercourse is implied within conduct. So it seems that items B1 and B2 were could have really been condensed. So that makes a lot of sense to me. The difference, or what I would add on in item 3, and I'm not trying to be too nitpicky, but in a strict reading of the ordinance, we talk in like part A and actually in the upper part of part B, where it identifies a person. So in item 3, if we were to look at this where it says exposes genitals, I think it should specify that it would be the specific genitals of a person, and you have a lot of animal owners. So technically, if somebody were to talk their dog out in a city park or something like that, they would be in violation of this law, unless we wanted to hand out dog pants or something like that. I'm not trying to make it contrite, but I would just kind of specify that it's particular.
Okay, and so for one thing, I just want to remind the council, right now, we should just be talking about the amendment. So the amendment that's on the table, which is the one that Stephen Knott presented. And then once we dispense with that, then we can talk about if there needs to be another amendment or whatnot. Alder Stokes.
Yes, I'd like to bring Katie into this discussion if she has anything that she would like to add to why this ordinance was set up the way that she and I believe Amanda did. Thank you.
Katie Aspenson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe the intention of B1 originally was just to provide a specific definition of sexual intercourse. However, I do understand that 2 is providing a variety of different types of sexual conduct, but you are correct, it is listed within it. Further, I would say that if you read the beginning of B1, where it's any person who within does any of the following and list out, I would say at that point you are covering that number 3 does refer strictly to humans. Thank you.
Katie, is there any sense of urgency for passing this? I feel like if the counselors already are having multiple amendments they like to bring forward, that it might be easier to just note those and then send it back for rewording.
I have no problem
Using
with that.
professionals that are paid to do that. Is there a reason it needs to be timely, or could we send it back, Katie?
I think it would be fine if you chose to send it back, Mayor. I would just check in with Chief Ashback, as he partnered with Amanda for this, if there was a specific timeline associated with it.
Okay, so I just bring that to the council's awareness, if necessary.
I have no problem pulling my amendment and doing that and referring it back. I am a little bit uneasy with the fact that our other attorney is not here, so I have no problem doing that.
Okay. All right, so the amendment has been lifted. The motion on the table, though, is to approve. So,
I move that we refer this then to the.
but we have
October
another
meeting.
motion on the floor already. So we need to just either remove the motion or disperse or vote it down. And,
The original motion was made by Leanne Stokes.
right, it was made by Leanne Stokes and seconded by Diane Wolf. So either we need to remove the original.
I remove by second.
I removed the original.
Okay, so now we're back to having no motion on the floor regarding ordinance
I
7.
move to refer this back to staff for further review.
Second.
Okay, motion by Alder Knott, seconded by Alder Wolf to refer ordinance 1742-2022 back to staff for further review. And I think that the minutes will show the concerns we have with the current wording. And we'll look forward to that passing through the next round of meetings. So that's the motion that's on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item up is item X, 6X, regarding the utility charges. And that will go to Alder Stephen Knott, who is the chair of that board.
This had to do with an appeal to the city to adjust charges on utilities. The Board of Public Works voted unanimously to deny that request. I will turn it over to Jared for further information.
Okay, Jared?
Right.
Or just say what the recommendation.
I'll make a motion to approve the denial.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion by Alder Knott, seconded by Alder Jurassic to approve denying the adjusting the utility charges for the address as described. Any further discussion? Alder Stevens?
Thank you, Your Honor. The first is administrative. The house in question is incorrectly listed on the agenda. It should be 1065 Hickory Street, not 1605 Hickory Street. 1605 Hickory Street does not exist. So technically the approval was to, deny a charge where the house was not made. But really what I'm looking to do is just advocate for a constituent and talk about the process of going through a request to have the water bill looked at. So in doing so, I read in the Board of Public Work minutes. I guess I'm asking that or suggesting that we should review the process in which a water bill discrepancies are handled, and if that process is fair to the end user, that being the Onalaska homeowner. So just for context, in this case, there was a resident on Hickory Street who brought her case to my attention, and I referred her to go through the process of talking to the Public Works Department to cast an appeal. In this case, the homeowner lives by herself, has newer fixtures, does not have a pool, does not have an in-ground watering system. And the time in question was not at a time when people were habitually watering their yards. In this case, it was nearly a 400% increase in the water bill. An inspector was sent out and there was no evidence found of leaks or running water. So those who maintain homes understand that leaks generally don't get better over time, they get worse. And there was no excess water anywhere to be found. So I guess the question is, what recourse does a non-Alaskan resident have if their bill is just wrong? So the experience of our constituent is there really is no recourse. So the status quo is that we point to the reading of a device, and that's essentially it. And then data obtained from the meter is kept for only 45 days, and then it is no longer retained. So with quarterly billing, it is unlikely that anyone who's had a discrepancy, they would not have time to contest their bill and then obtain the records prior to those records not existing. The resident is then deprived of being able to procure potential evidence in support of their claim. So if I were to present just a really brief analogy, imagine somebody was prosecuted with a crime and the prosecution cited evidence, and a defense attorney would be able to inspect and cross-examine that evidence to verify its accuracy. But here, the prosecution doesn't keep the evidence, so the defense has no defense. In the American judicial system, this would be deemed unfair and the case thrown out, but here in the city of Onalaska, the conviction would stand. So where else would such a business model, where else does that fly? I mean, imagine if your bank charged you $500 in NSF fees and you're like, I didn't bounce any checks. And they just said, well, our system shows you did. Consumers like, well, show me. And the bank says, sorry, we don't have those records anymore. That wouldn't fly in the banking or the general system. Why should it fly for an Onalaska water customer? So it is possible, we really don't know, that perhaps the customer really did use an extra 5,000 gallons of water for one person and didn't know it. But I guess my question is, what if she did not? What methodology would a taxpayer use to defend their claim? And I fear that there's a lack of transparency in her process, and that any attempt to plead a case otherwise ultimately is futile. I think the homeowner in this case is validated and feeling upset and a little disillusioned at the process, that it was really kind of hopeless from the beginning. So I think we need to entertain the idea that errors, sometimes human, sometimes mechanical, and sometimes digital, can happen. And in such cases, should the cities, our default response be to just stick that onus to the or that burden to the homeowner and deny them any potential data that could either support or refute their claim? If the meter is playing wrong, do we just kind of shrug our shoulders and say, well, that's just how it is? So to me, it just seems like there's not enough transparency in this process, and it just kind of feels wrong. I think that at the very least, we should kind of review what the process is from the point of view and the perspective of our taxpayer customers. And I want to present something, and I understand in most cases it probably is that they've used the water, but in the event that they have not, I think we need to do better for those people. So, I mean, to this point, I'm going to make a motion to reconsider the adjustment utility charges for 1065 Hickory Street.
Do we have a motion on the floor already? We already have a motion on the floor to approve the denial.
So I can't do a motion to reconsider? Okay, well, all right, I said my piece.
Mayor.
Yes, Stephen, Knott.
Yeah, just to address some of the concerns that Dan brought up. So I have a differing opinion on whether or not there is recourse. I actually think there is, and that the property owner availed themselves of the recourse, and that's they called the city engineers, and they sent out an engineer to inspect their water lines and test the meter to make sure it's accurate. So that's part of the recourse. And of course, the meter did come up as being reading accurate. As far as the 5,000 gallons of water, that seems huge. But last week I did a quick Google search and it said the average, I'm not saying this is what caused it, but this is an explanation. It might not be the explanation, that an average garden hose runs at 3 to 5 gallons a minute. So I used 4 gallons a minute in my calculation, times 60 minutes an hour, times 24 hours. And if somebody were to leave that hose on just for one day, that's 5,760 gallons. So that is an explanation. It might not, apply in this case, but it's not unreasonable to see how one oops could actually result in a 5,000 gallon increase in your water. I certainly have no problem with seeing if we can improve record keeping. There's, that's to me is always something we can be looking at. But just based on the conversations that what took place at the Board of Public Works, the fact that a garden hose alone can actually expel that much, it could be a sink. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you just leave water running that it actually does go very, very quickly. And to me, the main fact was the water meter was reading correctly and no leaks were found. So that is, I think, what drove my vote with the Board of Public Works to approve the denial. And I know that, again, the Board of Public Works did forward it with a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Jared, would you like to comment?
So we do have a leak policy that was approved updated and approved in 2016. So in that leak policy, I'm gonna read the actual part of that leak policy. In quote here, if the reason for excessive water use cannot be detected or determined by the city utility staff or a licensed plumber, then the homeowner will be responsible regardless of water used for the full amount of water consumption listed on the quarterly bill. End quote. And that is, I would say that we have shown through the meter operating correctly that the water was used. The water utility is actually governed by the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin, and they do have a line that you can call for if you think something regarding your water usage or water bills or water rates is not correct. And they actually, we have to bill for the water that goes through the meter. That's what they tell us we have to do. With that water meter being in site, there's no regulation that says that we must keep any data. We're fortunate that the meters we now use have technology that keeps 45 days worth of data. We have looked at upgrading our system over the course of the last 10 years. We actually looked at it very hard about 4 years ago, but it's going to be between $400,000 and $500,000 to get real-time data on our water meters. And so we have not moved forward with that budgetarily yet. We do keep looking at it as our metering software that we actually pick up the data with does age. We will probably at some point move forward with that technology, and hopefully, as with any technology, it'll come down in price as time goes on. So I guess that's where I'll quit for now.
Thank you. Before I go back to Alder Knott, are there any other alders that would like to say something? Okay, back to Alder Knott then.
So, and just, I guess, to highlight, the policy we do have, which I think is reasonable. If we were to make an exception to this, barring any type of evidence that something was amiss, we would be creating a precedent where anyone can come in and say, well, the only reason that happened was because obviously I have a leak, even though you can't find a leak. And my meter works fine. Obviously, this wasn't me, so I need to have some type of reduction in my water bill. I actually think voting opposite of this could actually create a very big problem for the city.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? Alder Stokes?
Just one comment. I was here at Public Works when the individual involved in this was testifying. And what I heard 2 or 3 times during her testimony was that she didn't feel that she got a significant, the right amount of explanation when she called. Now, some people need more explanation than other people. So I think that if the Public Works area could possibly look at how they explain things to some people. I mean, I've had this happen, you know, when I've talked to constituents too. But I think that someone who does this on a day-to-day basis, you know, understands everything that they're saying. But somebody who's coming in new to this and has a problem anyway, they're going to be mad, they're going to be emotional. And I'm not saying that Public Works didn't do that in this case, because I wasn't there, so I can't. But I just think that it's something that maybe the employees could just keep in mind, that when they're trying to explain something to somebody, rather than saying, well, the person isn't here, you know, or rather than saying this is what it is, can explain things more for them so that they can at least understand and walk away with the feeling that someone is listening to what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion? Alder Stevens.
So just for clarity, in the event that a meter was, say, temporarily went haywire and an Alaska water consumer, in the course of the billing period had, say, 1,000 gallons of water used in actuality, but the meter showed that it was 5,000 gallons of water. Just for the record, I want it is understood that the taxpayer then owes the 5,000 gallons of water. Would that be correct?
Go ahead, Jared.
Are you asking if they're going to get billed for it, or?
Yeah, would they be liable for that purchase of water if there was an undetectable error in the meter? What recourse would that person have? Or is there recourse none and they just have to pay it?
If our staff tests the meter per Public Service Commission regulations and the meter tests within parameters, we charge for the water. If we find something wrong with the meter, then we would not charge for the water if it's out of specifications.
What if the tests were intermittent what if the problems were intermittent or not consistent?
If it tests at the time we test it and it tests in a positive manner, we'll charge for the water.
In that hypothetical case, the person would then, if they only used 1,000 gallons, they would be charged for the 5,000 gallons.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Alder Knott.
So it would be difficult for me to believe that a meter broke and then fixed itself prior to being tested by the engineers. But I also want to again caution that a no vote on this, if that were to pass as a no, could be a real threat of creating a billing sequence that the property owners get to guess what it is they used. The meter no longer matters. This would be a dangerous precedent.
Thank you, Alder Stokes, and then Alder Jurassic.
Jared, I was just wondering, what are the safeguards that are in place so that you feel comfortable that that meter is, you know, I mean, I know you said that you run the test, but are there any safeguards that when you bought these meters that they said that this is how you know and you can rely on this?
It's a sealed unit. The meters we used to use years ago had actually a dial that spun inside. Now they're all no moving parts. It's an electronic device that you know, we've got 6,500 meters in the city, and they're as far as failure goes, I don't know if we've ever had one of this model failure in our city. I'm sure somewhere along the way they've had a failure, but they're warranted for 20 years. We actually don't, the DNR actually allows us now with the newer style meters to have them, we don't have to change them out for 20 years. So it used to be 10 years that we'd have to take them out and test them and make sure that they're working again and then re-put them in. But with the new meters, we are allowed 20 years before change out by the public service regulations. As far as a fail safe, the only thing would be to upgrade our technology so we could have instantaneous readings, and we would have those readings then saved for a longer period of time other than the 45 days. But we'd have to move to a different system to read our meters. And once we would do that, it would only probably start with about, I would guess we'd be at about 30% right now. But as the MXU, the metering, the box that actually sends the signal out, those will have to get upgraded over time because the older ones that are over 6 years old in our system will not read to the towers. So it would still take us time to transition into that technology.
Just one additional question. Do you have any idea cost wise what something like that would be?
$400,000 to $500,000
It
to do
is
the city.
400,000 to 500,000. Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
and then Alder Jurassic was waiting his turn.
Yeah, at the Public Works meeting, you did express that you are keeping track of her usage now. Have you heard anything on that? Has there been any major increase or is it a normal?
I have had nothing since the Public Works meeting, but I know our customer service office supervisor did make contact with the homeowner the end of last week.
Oh, but it hasn't been metered again since that time?
I don't know for sure if they've been out and done it.
Thank you for that. Okay, Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. So Jared, too, didn't you say at last week's Board of Public Works meeting that when you pull the meter, you test it like 3 different times and they have to be within a certain parameter?
Yeah, they test high, low, and medium flow, and they've all got it. The sheet, I don't remember. I think it was in the Board of Public Works packet, the actual testing sheet. But Frank Fisher, our meter technician, does test those meters when they come out, and we actually go out and put that meter back in.
And in order to find out what maybe the homeowner's usage would be, they would have to go, at least since that meeting, they would have to go back out there, pull the meter, and then bring it back in.
We've been going back out and driving by and taking readings.
Oh, okay.
But in order to get the 45-day data, the data that's in the meter that you can download, we had to pull the meter to get that specific hourly data out of the meter.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, Alder Knott.
And just one last one. I did a quick look and I've got multiple with the same responses. Just to show that, again, 5,000 seems like a lot, but it isn't if something goes wrong. I'm looking up what happens if you just have a running toilet, which I'm sure we've all experienced. And I'm getting anywhere from 250 to 1,400 gallons a day, depending on how much the water is running through it. But even at 250 gallons a day, that's in 3 days, in 30 days, that would account for this. Again, I don't know that's what causes. I'm just, again, throwing that out there that 5,000 gallons isn't as big as what it seems. There are a lot of things in a house that could go wrong that could easily account for that. That is not a leak. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Alder Jurassic?
Yeah, and with our sandy soil, that water wouldn't pool necessarily. It could go straight down and you never even noted, other than a rainstorm or something like that. At the same time, you wouldn't notice it at all.
Okay, thank you. The motion on the floor is to approve the denial of the adjustment to the utility charges. The corrected address is 1065 Hickory Street. Is there any other discussion?
Ask for roll call. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, not seeing any. I'll ask Joanne Marcon to do the vote via roll call.
Leanne Stokes,
The motion on the floor is to approve the denial. So a yes vote keeps the denial in place, which was the action of the committee.
Yes.
Tom Smith,
Yes.
Larry Jurassic,
Yes,
Diane Wolf,
Yes.
Dan Stevens,
No.
Stephen Knott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes to approve the denial with a vote of 5-1. Okay, that concludes item X and the items that were pulled from the consent agenda. So I'll move on to item 8, the Finance Committee, and I'll turn things over to Alder Dan Stevens. Starting with A, vouchers.
Consent agenda is hidden all the way in the back. All right, under item 8A, vouchers. Looks like we spent a lot of money. The following is a list of monies expended since the last common council meeting dated August 9th, 2022. The total is $7,034,608.49. I will make such motion to approve.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens. It's been seconded by Alder Smith to approve the vouchers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously.
Under item 8B, there was discussion regarding the 2023 budget strategy. Since this isn't an actionable item, I'll just maybe give a brief recap. And the main item had to do with how we should place as a placeholder in the budget for the next city administrator's position. So we had to put a figure in there. If we did it too light, we might limit ourselves as to kind of the quality of the city administrator. If we did it too heavy or too aggressive, it's creating an even larger hole in the budget. Ultimately, I think that we decided to go with a 7 months, to budget for 7 months at the step 3, which was kind of the middle ground, and gives us some flexibility. It's important to note that this is not a finite number. It is a placeholder in the budget. It could be more, it could be less, and things would get jockeyed around. But for now, we had Sabrina would need to have some sort of figure on what the intention of council was, and F&P at least was to kind of split the middle. The second item had to do with a potential recycling fee or other options to address the budget shortfall. And that was another discussion. And I'm not sure if this was part of it, but it was actually, it's related. There was talk of investment policy. And if we could better use our funds to get a little bit more of a return, which would be part of our strategy in addressing the 2023 budget. I believe that they wanted this to be pulled. I think Alder Wolf wanted this on or requested that this be on the non-consent agenda, as the budget strategy is something that the whole council should have a voice in. And so here it is. If anybody else had thoughts or wanted to speak, they speak now or forever hold your peace.
Thank you. They don't have to hold it forever, just till the next budget meeting. Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. So Sabrina, just want to confirm what F&P Chair Stevens is referring to. I show step B, grade 22 for 7 months. I show the figure of $81,581.59. Now that is straight salary. That does not include any roll-ups or anything, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I am good with that number. I think F&P did vote on that. That was unanimous, but I know Leanne and Alder Stokes and I were able to weigh in. I told Alder Jurassic was not there for that part of the meeting. So I just thought it would be good for us just all to be able to weigh in and have an actual vote on it. So we were all, so I didn't want there to be a surprise when we get an F&P 2 next month and half of us who didn't get to vote says, what?
Sabrina?
It's actually not a voted item. It's just kind of guidance on where to go with the budget. I don't think we actually took a vote at F&P.
No.
Just some guidance on where to go.
Consensus.
And obviously you'll be voting on it when you receive the budget.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Works.
So yeah, so I mean, I would be fine with that, with the 7 month grade 22, that middle ground. And like you say, it's kind of a crapshoot because we really don't know until we proceed further. And I think the closer we get, the better idea we'll have, but I think it's a good starting point.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anyone have any other comments? Alder Jurassic?
Yeah, I wasn't here for that meeting, but what was the final on the trash? Result?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I believe it is an option that will be discussed
Okay,
amongst other things. There was talk of using reserves. There was, I don't think there was a lot of talk of cutting anything, but this will affect the, we have a potential hole in our budget that we're gonna have to figure out how to balance our books. And it's never a fun process, and it's gonna be a challenge for the city.
so there was no,
But yeah, no, there's no, it's just a discussion of options.
I'd say we're exploring that as an option.
thank you.
Alder not.
Yeah, and what was the budget shortfall? Was it 263?
260, yeah, it's right around 260,000.
So,
And we're still dealing with preliminary.
yeah, and that's really what the issue was. Again, there was a lot of discussion on the recycling, but it's not a recycling problem. It's a budget shortfall problem.
Correct.
Yeah, one way or another, we have to address it.
Okay, Alder Wolf.
Thank you again for a quick follow-up. So I know at FNP last week, there was a discussion about a pressing timeline because there's a number of things that need to fall in place for this to go forward. Because I'm guessing we're looking to hit January water bills if this is what we're to go through.
Can we just have Sabrina answer that quick, or do you want to finish?
And part of that, my question then would be, at what point do you need an answer from council if we're going to go forward is my biggest concern. Thank you.
I believe we would want to start that process soon in regards to the recycling fee. It wouldn't be a refuse fee, just recycling fee to move forward, because there would have to be some ordinances and resolutions passed, and staff would have to work on how to get that into the water bills. But it's my assumption, Jared, if you agree or disagree, that wouldn't hit until April, correct? Because the first bill in January would be for 2022 usage.
You'd only be able to budget 3/4 of the revenue.
No, because we book the revenue back,
You book the revenue back from January.
accounting. Yeah,
The accounting system said
Creative
it's correct,
accounting.
and that can be done.
yes. So essentially what happens is it gets recorded as a receivable. We book the revenue and book the receivable in 2023.
What she said.
Us engineers work in straight lines.
Sure glad we have a Sabrina.
So back to, so soon, so do you need an answer, does staff need an answer prior to October, council?
I think that was our intention, that if there is consensus to kind of move forward with that as an option, that we would present a budget with the recycling as being a fee.
Well, since it's just listed on the agenda as discussion, I don't see that as necessarily an actionable item though.
Right, so the actionable item would be the if there's consensus to kind of move forward with that, then we would work on a resolution and an ordinance and bring that forward.
Okay, so consensus.
Okay, so further discussion. I guess we need to know if there's a consensus for the fee.
I think that I'd like to see it presented, yes.
I like to.
Is there anyone that doesn't want to see where the fee takes us? So anyone doesn't want to go down the recycling fee road?
I would prefer to explore other options. I still think that I have some philosophical problems with adding a fee or a tax that does not offset a new service that's created. I think that as Aldernaut pointed out, this is not a recycling problem, it's a budget problem, and this type of entity should be funded through the levy. I think that we are targeting specifically Onalaska resident homeowners, and it is a flat tax, which is affects the poor as much as it would the wealthy. Big box stores, large landlords, commercial properties are not contributing to this, and the funds are going to the city bills, and that should be borne by the whole city, not just homeowners. So I'm not in favor of it. I would rather explore other options.
Jared, could you maybe do a little history on the recycling, like how our recycling fee or program and why? So when we first, correct me if I'm wrong, when we first started the recycling program, it was anticipated that it would pay for itself because of the recyclables that were collected, and there would be a market for them that would generate some revenue for our provider. Can you just kind of go into the history, like behind the fee that we are charged from the recycling or that we pay to the refuge and recycling company?
The contractor.
Contract, thank you, that's. The one.
So recycling is required by state statute to be performed. They don't give you any direction on how to perform it. So we do curbside single stream pickup currently. We've been recycling in the city since, I don't have the exact date, but it's the early 90s at some point, very early 90s. In the latest contract, we did go to single stream recycling, and that recycling is only, our contract for service is only for single family through 4-unit structures. So single family homes, duplexes, 3plexes, and a 4plex. So currently the city tax levy does support the enterprise fund that performs refuse and recycling services. The recycling that is performed by the city is just for those 4 units and under. Anything above that, they are still required to recycle by our city ordinances, but they have to pay for that on their own. Our contract has a fee for service per unit, which per stop, per container, per automated cart for each pickup point within the city. With that automated cart is picked up when it's pushed out to the curb. The contractor bids it accordingly. Our contract does not have any incentives for the city as far as if the recyclables gain money for reimbursement. The city does not see any of those. But then again, we do not have any of the risk. As you've seen recently, the price of recyclables in the last year has went up. And so their contractors back to the point where they're probably making what they originally thought on the bid. But as of about 2 years ago, they had a ban on China would not take any recyclables from the United States due to not being clean enough. So the price of recyclables tumbled. It was very low. The market was very low. So it's an ebb and flow with that, but we are locked in for a 7-year rate, and then it's based on the CPI. So we are protected that way. So we do not see any of the ebbs and flows in that. But our recycling program is just what we pay the contractor is about $225,000 a year for the service, the every other week automated cart service. I don't know if that gets where you want to go or.
Yeah, I just didn't know if anybody realized that. Thank you. Thank you, Jared. Aldernott?
I just also want to add, as far as, the statement that this only applies to the homeowners, factually correct, but somewhat arguably deceptive. So currently the city services are provided to residents in 4-family unit or less, correct? Everyone else, 5-family unit or above, or a business or what have you, they already have to pay the full cost of their own recycling. So they're paying right now. So yeah, it would be factually correct that this $32 fee annually, $8 every quarter would only apply to, residents. But that's because everyone else is already paying it. So.
Hey, Alder Stevens.
I guess the counter to Aldernott's point is that that would be true if this was dealing with a recycling issue. This is a budget issue, and we're spending money on salaries and cars and gas and supplies for the city. If this were a recycling thing that we were needing to pay for, this was a new recycling program, or we had new costs specifically in recycling, I think that argument would hold up, but we're paying for firefighters and police officers and, you know, people in finance and HR and Parks and Rec and Public Works. So I stand by my point. I think that this is a levy that is specifically borne by Onalaska residents in under 4 units. And it is not shared equally amongst the entire tax base. And I think it should be put on the levy, or at least borne by the levy.
Okay. I think Sabrina would like to say something.
And it currently is, the levy does currently pay for it in that separate fund through the city. And the cost, we're not pushing any additional cost off. It's just the actual cost of what it costs the city for the recycling program. Just to be clear with that, we're not going to make any money on this. It's just the true cost of what it costs us to do recycling within the city.
Okay, any questions on that? Alder Jurassic.
Yeah, Jared, you mentioned 7-year contract. Is that 7 years left, or it's a 7-year contract?
It's not on.
Thank you. The city had an original 7-year contract with Harder's Quick Cleanup that was extended approximately 2 years ago. So we're in I believe year 2 of 7-year contracts. We have 5 more years left.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, so I'm not sure where we ended up on that. I felt like,
I think you still need to ask Larry what he thinks.
oh,
Did you have a chance to say whether or not you supported looking at this or no?
Oh, yeah, that's,
exploring,
yeah,
moving forward with exploring.
okay, yeah. That's all I want to do is find out what happened in the meeting I missed. And that's what the discussion has been so far, so.
Okay. So it looks like
So
most
open
people are
Pandora's
in
box.
I think everyone's in favor of at least exploring the idea, although when it comes to the bottom line, perhaps they may not be. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then the investment policy, was there a consensus on that?
As long as it's not in the market today.
Yeah, I definitely would like to see that too. And we're looking at kind of conservative, we're limited on what we can invest in anyway.
Right,
So
just
these
like-
would be low yield, but it would be better than zero.
We're also limited in what fees we can charge
Roger
as
that.
well. There's only certain ones that. Okay, so is there anything else that anyone feels they want to express themselves on the budgetary strategy discussion? Okay, so Sabrina, do you need to express yourself on any topic? Because I know the numbers are still kind of coming in. So
Yep, they're definitely still coming in. We did receive some estimates from the state today for revenues, and we'll continue to receive those through the end of this month. A little disheartening, our expenditure restraint program. So way back, so probably 10 years ago, we used to get around $200,000 for the expenditure restraint by not going over that cap. Our estimate for 2023 is $7,000. In 2022, we were 7,000. In 2022, we received just over 60,000. So I did send an email off to the state to make sure that the calculation is correct, because that is quite a decrease in the estimate, and hopefully there is an error. If there's not,
We don't know.
that does, make me not concerned with meeting the limit for the expenditure restraint. So
makes the decision easier. If that really is $7,000.
Can't be.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
not to add a damper onto anybody's evening, but
Okay, that concludes the budget discussion. Moving on to item 9, Board of Public Works, Alder Knott.
So you have in front of you, or should have in front of you, a piece of paper that shows you the bid for the 2022 Omni Center ethylene propylene diene terpolymer roof replacement bid for $38,600. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve this bid.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Alder
Second.
Knott,
Second.
seconded by Larry Jurassic. Is there discussion? Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. So Jared, I'm assuming this was on capital improvements for 2022. And so is it item 59 or 60 of last year? Is it the arena roof number 2 or the replace the flat roof between arena?
I don't have my exact capital improvement budget up, but this would be the one that's budgeted for $50,000.
Okay, that's replace
So
the flat
in our
roof.
2022 capital improvement budget, we did have an approved item for the Omni Center EPDM roof replacement for $50,000. We did receive one bid from Interstate Roofing for $38,600, which is under the budget. We did have 2 other contractors that had plans and did ask questions, but they just did not bid. So we did have interest. We did have other contractors interested in the project, but today when we opened bids, we had the one bid come in.
Okay, thank you. Alder Stevens?
Is this bid, with only one bid, do you think this bid is market rate competitive?
I think it's actually below what I was expecting.
Okay, Alder Knott?
Yeah, this is one of the few things we've seen this year that have come under the expected cost because of inflation. Yeah, so I'm very happy with it personally. And I know, again, this personal preference when it comes to, this wasn't the budget, but when it comes to budgeting items, number one, of course, is always public safety, but very closely after that comes with mitigating projects, meaning if we don't do X, then things get more expensive. And certainly roofs have that very real danger. So,
Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve the the bid for interstate roofing in the amount of $38,600 for the Omni Center EPDM roof replacement bid. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item 10, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Knott to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We are adjourned, and I'm not going to say the time because I seem to mess it up.
8:23.
Thank you. 8:23 PM.
Jared, can we
Thank you,
get the same
everyone.
people to make a